Hello and welcome to Kent Union's live debates. Today we are joined by the candidates for academic experience. So Andrea, Vicky and Gavin. So I will get each one of you to do a 1-minute opening statement. Is there a preference for anyone who wants to go? No? Okay, we can do it this way. So you guys have got 2 minutes to do an opening statement.
Okay, so first of all, I'd just like to say a little bit about myself and why exactly it is I'm running. So I'm a current master's student here at Kent, studying forensic osteology and field recovery methods. I did also do my undergrad here, which I finished just last year. That was in archaeology and anthropology. That included a year abroad, so I've actually been, this is now technically my 5th year at Kent. I've also, in that time, over the summers on my undergrad, worked for Kent Hospitality, doing cleaning in Parkwood. So I'm hoping that sort of all those 5 years of experience of all sort of different aspects of university will mean that I'll be good for the role in terms of I'll be able to help students out with sort of hopefully anything that comes up. Like having done the year abroad, having worked for Kent, yeah, that's basically it, really. No.
Okay, thank you.
Brilliant. So, hi everyone, I'm Vicky and I'm running for re-election. I've obviously got elected this time last year, and this last year has been an absolute whirlwind. I've only been doing this job for 8 months now, but this 8 months have been absolutely incredible. Been working on so many good things, and if re-elected, then next year I really want to work on embedding sustainability in the curriculum. It's a really key problem at the minute, and not enough awareness is being done around that. I also want to work on better office hours, both in-person office hours and online office hours for our commuters, mostly at Medway. And also I'd love to work better with our reps and academic societies in light of the restructure. How we interact with schools and the university generally is going to have to change quite a lot. So I would love to be able to be the steering guidance in that change.
Thank you. Andrea?
Right, so first of all, hello everyone. I'm Andrea and I'm a final year social anthropology, so from the same school of Gavin. And I did as well a year abroad last year in Japan, and now back here at Kent, and I'm running for the academic experience position. What I would like to focus on, if elected, would be sustainability, in particular also diversifying the curriculum by introducing the Living Lab, which I hope would be a good opportunity, which means embedding a real-life approach using the campus as a laboratory to experiment and bring better things to the community.
Thank you very much, guys. So I'm going to move on to the questions now. So my first question to you guys is, you all talk about embedding sustainability in the curriculum, but with students overwhelmed and stressed by how much they are having to learn and retain as part of their degree, what do you see as the best way to embed this without creating more studying commitments for students?
You guys are right if I go first on this one?
Go for it.
So there's a group called Responsible Futures who are a part of the charity wing of NUS, and they've got a group which is currently co-chaired by a member of Estates and our own Sustainability Network chair. I've been lucky enough to be invited onto some of their meetings, and the work they're doing is absolutely incredible. But a lot of the conversations they're having is the extracurricular embedding of sustainability. So it's not just about adding in extra modules, extra hours of work. Ideally, if re-elected, I would love to work on embedding sustainability as part of our graduate attributes so that it becomes part of every module that you would have to do. One of the graduate attributes that currently exists at Kent is the global citizen. So in theory, every student of Kent should become a global citizen. And part of that, I think, is key to knowing more about sustainability, to being more environmentally aware. And in theory, when you leave Kent, you should be able to have all the skills that you can to continue the cycle of sustainability. So I don't think it's necessarily about adding on the stress to students, but put in more pressure on the university to embed that sustainability throughout the work that we're already doing.
Yeah, in like a sort of similar vein, again, I don't believe it is going to be adding stress on the students at all. I don't really see that there would be any need for extra modules. I think a lot of students, particularly sort of the younger ones now coming in, are very aware of like sustainability, environmental issues already. I think a lot of them do sort of work towards sustainability, and it's more the university itself as an entity that needs to do more rather than the students as such. Andrea will know as well, within SAC, School of Anthropology and Conservation, just last term they declared an official climate emergency, and so they themselves are now working towards more sustainable practices. They are looking at cutting food waste, which for me is a huge thing. Having worked for Kent Hospitality and seeing the amount of food waste that university creates, it's ridiculous. So one of the things I would very much like to see about is what could be done about that, whether this food can just be given away to students for free or at like an extremely discounted price, or even if it could be given to like one of the homeless charities such as like Catching Lives in the city. Yeah, and through doing that, I would look to work with the people in the School of Anthropology and Conservation that have already got these sort of initiatives going within our school, and look to push for other schools, first of all, to take it up. And then the university itself, for some reason, they're withholding, not declaring an official climate emergency, even though like Christchurch University, for example, has done. Many other universities around the country have, for some reason, as is not, and I don't know why.
Yeah, continuing on a similar line, embedding sustainability in the curriculum doesn't mean to add more modules. It means to change and embed it in module already existing. So it means is a change that could start from the module conveners. It starts from them. It starts in the change of the assessment. For example, I don't know, journalist module would be looking at how articles talk about sustainability, or maybe data analytics could be using data generated by Kent Estates and see what it can do to help sustainability. So it's a change not of quantity but of a degree and quality. And as well, of course, one other important part, just news of today, there are now I think 74 universities that are committed to divest from non-renewable sources, so not to invest as part of their portfolio in companies as BP or Shell, but Kent hasn't done so yet. So this would be also a way in which sustainability can be integrated in the curriculum, basically. So it starts from the university, the modules, and also with the other part I was just saying before, the living lab, which means basically creating a space, creating a department would be sort of in which students and staff can cooperate on sustainability issues. And this would also give an impact and make theory or the world of academia less abstract and more real and engaging and focused on the community.
Thank you, guys. My next question is, at the moment, lots of students are not aware that they even have a course representative. And how would you guys plan to make sure all students are aware of what the reps do and aware of the reps and what they do? Sorry.
Well, something I've myself been on the Anthropology Society committee for both of the last 2 years, like currently still am, I mean, and last year of my undergrad. And one of the things we have tried to do with the course reps and the school reps is to try and get them to come along to some of our socials and events and introduce themselves to the students, so that then they are aware of who the course reps are, who the school reps are, because as you say, like most people have no idea, they don't know who to go to. Yeah. So yeah, we've tried to work with them, and I would encourage, obviously in the sort of VP for academic experience role, you are working with the academic society, so I would try and encourage all academic societies to take up like a similar sort of practice to what we have in the Anthropology Society.
Yeah, no, definitely a good idea, and I would say that would be one of the first steps. Another step would be through basically asking student reps to be more active, more visible. And this is not only done on the part of the student reps, but also on the part of the module conveners and the head of schools. So they also play an important part. For example, many times on Moodles or on module outlines. There could be just a brief section next to the contact details for your head of school, or for when the office hours are, also for who is your student rep. And that's just as simple as to write few sentences in Word before submitting the module outline.
Yes, I think this is actually a really topical point at the minute. With the restructure of the university that's taking place, obviously we're going from faculties to divisions, and the way that schools work generally is completely different, but shouldn't in theory affect student experience that much. However, this has given the union a really unique opportunity to restructure our rep systems. So sort of work that's been going on for longer than I've been in office, but that is sort of coming to a head and will have to be implemented over the summer, is how we change our rep system to work more efficiently with the university. I think at the minute we've got a lot of gaps in our system where we can't necessarily support every rep at all times, so sometimes those reps tend to sort of float and get a bit more distance from us, or become closer to the school, or vice versa. So I feel like we don't necessarily have the support structures in place to go down to such a granular level as every course, but hopefully with the changes that are proposed to take place, sort of moving from some sort of minute courses to having representation, sort of being more team-based, that should hopefully make our reps more, or should definitely make our reps more visible, and also give us and the schools more opportunity to collaborate and to push together the academic societies and reps to make them both more visible, because I think we don't use either of them enough when they are such core pillars of the student experience at the minute, and they are the key way that we can keep the student experience going.
Okay. I've just been asked, this is a question from social media, how many times have you guys actually been to the Medway campus?
I've only been there once personally.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, once as well.
I have to go there quite a lot. I was there maybe a couple of weeks ago, definitely at least once this term, but yeah, I normally go a couple of times a term.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, in that respect, like, I would like to see more sort of connection, because in my whole time here, it's always felt like the two campuses are completely separate entities, that they're not together at all. And it could be as simple as doing something like the varsity sports that we do with Christchurch. You could do a similar thing with the two different campuses. It doesn't even have to be sports, just some sort of communal events, rather than the two things being completely separate.
Okay, thank you guys. How would you plan to make sure all... Oh, wait, sorry. I've read the same question again. So the BME and attainment gap is an important ongoing challenge for many universities, such as Kent. What actions would you take to proactively address the BME attainment gap?
So I think our attainment gap's dropped by about 8% in the last 2 academic years. And I know the Student Success Project that are working in about 6 or 7 different pilot schools are doing a lot of good work. And there are so many opportunities for the academic experience officer to get involved in those. And I have been working with some schools, SECO in particular, in order to start those conversations. And there are definitely schools that the attainment or BME attainment gap affects more than others. And I think it's working closer with those schools to address how representative their staff are, in order to make BAME students feel like they are comfortable and confident in becoming the academics that they could be, because I feel like the representation from the university down to the students isn't, I don't want to say isn't good enough, but the ratios of BAME to white staff and BAME to white students is completely off, and I don't think that that's good enough, and I think that we definitely need to be holding the university to account more for that.
Yeah, I think following on from that, like, definitely in terms of the lecturers and just actually general staff, there definitely needs to be more done, because the lack of representation is like very clear for all to see. I think, for example, in my school, I can't think of any non-white lecturers. No.
Difficult.
Yeah, so yeah, that's obviously a problem. But then I also know within my school, the attainment gap is not huge. I think it is lower than the university average. So it could be, as Vicky said, like speak to the staff in the school and see what it is that they're doing that makes that difference.
Yeah, and of course, like there is plan, as Vicky said, on success program also to change the population, the statistic of through the recruitment of students, but as well staff. And another part would be, I see in my curriculum, at least in my reading list, there is this ongoing debate of decolonizing the curriculum. So this is also another part in which it's really key and important to bring the debate to the fore and change the reading list. Even 1-2 articles point out that actually they are from BME authors, so that they do not go unnoticed, because in the name there can be a lot that being told.
Thank you. Following on from that question, we've got another question from social media. So with more diverse students coming in, how would you make sure that education is accessible to all of those students?
That's a really good question. I think probably one of the biggest barriers that we face is having students from wider backgrounds coming in. They don't necessarily have the typical student sort of background of coming through A-levels and having sat loads of exams, and that's the sort of regime that you're used to. And I guess 15 years ago, that's the sort of students that were coming to university. But obviously now we've got students that come from all parts of the globe, from all different backgrounds. And I think it's really important that we're changing our assessment patterns to fit with those as well. The way we teach is, or the way we are taught is changing currently, and I know that there's a lot of work going on in various pockets of the university that isn't being highlighted, where there are interactive lectures and better interaction between the staff and the students live happening, but that's the sort of thing that we need to be picking up on and spreading out to the rest of the university. But also in changing how we assess students, making it more online, it makes it more accessible for those who are used to having online exams and better online submissions, because I don't think that's something that Kent's very good at, is being innovative in the way that we not only teach but in the way that students are assessed.
Yeah, I think this is actually links back to what Andrea was just saying about like changing the curriculum, changing what sort of reading is on the curriculum, and making sure there is sort of something for everyone, as it were. We in anthropology, we're quite lucky because obviously part of what we study is other cultures, and so our reading lists are generally quite diverse. They do feature people from like all sorts of different countries. So it would be looking at, can that be done in other subjects? Obviously, my main sort of area of expertise is archaeology and anthropology stuff. Within archaeology, it's a huge problem that there's not a lot written by sort of non-white. Yeah. So I don't know. It would be difficult to look at there, but yeah, certainly within anthropology, we can sort of again speak to the lecturers there and sort of see if they have any ideas, because these are people, particularly on sort of the social anthropology side, that are experts in looking at other cultures and helping other cultures. Sort of, and so I mean, I'll try and get advice from my lecturers that I've sort of some of them made friends with over the last 5 years, and see what they could do to help me with that.
Yeah, no, definitely. With a changing student population, there will be also a need, and there is also already been a request for a change in how people are assessed and how people can be catered for a better education. Another way that ties in also with the sustainable curriculum is that teaching can also be experiential, can also be hands-on. Just was going through the website for Kent. It's a page that goes back to 2012, but how the labyrinth just next to the Elliott footpath basically was actually used for teaching once in 2012. So those kind of things that happened in the past but now are left somewhere and I've never been used. So those kind of experience, those kind of more online assessments, those kind of different, that doesn't require just the seminar and doesn't require just the production of a piece of paper. It might require the production of a video, more creative stuff. I mean, modules have different ways. It doesn't need to have written creative writing to have a creative assessment. It can have been written something else. and have still that component of creativity, and that can be coming from, of course, the academic experience, and can come from other best practices found in schools. So there is the need to find who is doing the right thing in a way, and this will be also helpful when there is the restructuring of Kent from faculties to department, so schools will be able to integrate more with their staff and share best practices, hopefully.
Thank you. Another question from social media. How do you plan on implementing student feedback back to the university board?
I think possibly the best way is something I've not really thought about, to be honest. Possibly a good way to do it, in sort of particularly in our role, I guess, would be to try and work with the academic societies and sort of see if we could get them to help in terms of them getting feedback from the members of the societies, and then obviously them feeding that on to us, and so on us to the university. But it's a difficult one, because obviously the university itself as an entity, I think, is not the greatest in terms of connecting with students. And I think often, at least in my experience, a lot of students feel that Kent Union is a part of that, and they don't see Kent Union necessarily as representing them very well. So it's definitely something that needs to be worked on, and I would obviously try and sort of see what can be done in terms of making people feel that they are part of Kent Union, and that Kent Union is actually doing their best to represent them.
Yeah, I know they say that in a way the strongest voice, especially in university, is the student voice, because they are the one that actually an integral part of the university. I mean, without students or without lecturers, the university itself does not exist as such in a way. So how do you get the university to make changes is by bringing the student voice to the university. But the problem then is in how do you get the student voice? Well, one way that hasn't really worked in the past years is just to send emails, ask for surveys. But I think that step could be made proactive. It could be made, you go there with the survey, you speak to people, a sort of reflection from anthropology, if you want, of fieldwork, of participant observation. So you don't expect someone to come to you and tell you the problem, because they might not want to, they might not be interested, they might have something else to do. But you can go there and say, I'm here, you have all my time to tell me, and so on. So that's one thing that can be done. And also, as we were talking before, with the restructuring of student reps, more emphasis on academic societies, I guess, and I think that student voice in this way can be organized, collected, and used to implement and bring changes.
Sorry, I'm just going to quickly ask you a question, just for you, Andrea. This is from social media, because everyone keeps talking in my ear. So you talk a lot about implementing these new creative sorts of curriculums, but at the moment, with all these ongoing strikes of staff being overworked, how would you go about doing that?
So the staff strikes are an interesting point at a time of crisis, of course, but usually time of crisis are also time of change. So crisis can spark change. This is a problem that has to do mainly between the university and the UCU, the union, the labor union for the lecturers. So the point is they're overwhelmed, they say, with more faculty meeting, or more meeting about impact and so on. Hopefully, the change and restructure bringing by next year with the merging of schools into departments will alleviate some of this burden and ignite more change. So this is one way in which lecture can do and could do with a change. The other way is in, if the students usually ask, there could be a change, and this is also a way for the lecturers to actually tweak, to have more, how do you say, power and control on their modules, which is what the actual restructuring and reshuffling into departments from the university wants to achieve, wants to give the schools more leeway and more freedom to express themselves.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to the next question now. Students face a huge inconsistency, mouthful, of academic experience across the university, from school to school and even course to course. What do you think is the biggest issue of inconsistency across the university, and what would you do to address this issue?
You're really hitting out of the park with these questions, aren't you?
I am. I'm really testing you guys.
Wow. So a lot of the work I've been doing this year has been around I'm not going to say smaller inconsistencies because I don't think any of them are that small, but the inconsistency of student experience, such as enhancement weeks, and enhancement weeks is probably the biggest one, but that work's sort of ongoing and wrapping up in the next couple of weeks on looking at reports of what actually happened versus what should have happened, whether students were actually here for them. Obviously, last term they were heavily affected by the strike period happening. I know that students missed out on a lot of teaching but because of that, but that's probably one of the biggest problems at the minute. Another inconsistency that students probably face but probably aren't so aware of is the office hour problem. Students on joint honours modules can often just walk into one of their lecturers' offices at any given time as long as they're there, and others have to book in through an appointment system. I know at Medway the appointment system works quite well. There's a lot of commuters at Medway, so that sort of system of knowing when you have to go and see your lecturer or academic advisor is really good to plan in advance. But for some of the schools and specifically some courses on the Canterbury campus, it's easier for students to sort of drop in and just sort of say hi and ask a quick question. So that's a large piece of work that I'd like to do next year, is trying to even that gap so that all students can have all forms of personal academic help. Because if you've got a question at 5 to 4 on a Thursday that really needs answering before your deadline on Friday, you should be able to walk into your lecturer's office and ask it. You shouldn't have to wait until Friday at 11 a.m. to have to specifically go and talk to them.
Vicky just mentioned like academic advisors, and I think that's a huge problem, and there's so much inconsistency. Personally, over my time at uni, my academic advisors, I had 2 different ones, and they were both useless. None of them ever got in contact with me or just to introduce themselves or sort of arrange any sort of meeting. But then I know some students who are really happy with their academic advisors. The academic advisors are really engaged. They get in contact with them a few times over the course of the year just to check up on them, see how they're doing. So that is something I'd like to address in terms of ensuring that like the university actually makes the academic advisors be helpful. It should be, all of them should have to send out an email at least to their students when they first start, just to introduce themselves, to offer a meeting, like, because I know that it can be, if you don't meet your academic advisor right at the start and then suddenly in like second year you've got a problem but you've never met the person before, you're going to be a bit like, oh, I don't really want to go and see them, like, do they really care about it? So that is something I definitely look at. And another inconsistency is sort of within the different schools, how much of a community there is. Again, I keep saying about it, but we're quite lucky in anthropology. It's very much a sort of a community school where like there is events where the staff and the students can all come together in like the little SAC foyer, like yearly sort of Christmas events, end of term events, and that's gets like a really good spirit between people. You get to know your lecturers, and so that just helps. Overall, you do feel like you can go and speak to your lecturers because you've like had a little chat with them over some drinks or with some food. And I would try and encourage like other schools to do sort of similar events where the staff and students can mix in sort of a relaxed and an informal setting rather than always being in the classroom.
Yeah, no, literally not that much to add on. That was what I was going to say. A feeling of community is really important. And I feel like some schools are missing out on that, and they're not really engaging the students too much, whether it be because they have poor communication or because they don't put up events or anything like that. So students should be encouraged from the first year, but not stopping at first year, but second, third year, when they're returning from the year abroad, to bring their experience, also to share their experience and create a community, really, because by creating that, by looking at people, by interacting with people, then I don't know, one word could help you in your assignment, even if you're overhearing someone else in a way.
Okay, thank you. Another question from social media is, how do you plan to improve personal student academic support?
So maybe this one ties in a bit with my manifesto point. I think there are loads of resources at Kent, but many of them fly under the radar. So we have SLAS, which is the Center for that helps you, Student Learning Advisory Center. So it could help you in writing assignments, can help you with references, can help you with study plans. But there are also a whole loads of apps that are highlighted on pages at the University of Kent websites. Then you have the academic advisors, you have announcement weeks, you have in some schools peer support, and then the academic societies, MyFolio, employability points, all these names that can be thrown out at you, and then of course conferences, events, and so on, but which in a way fly under the radar. So I think there is the need to have a better communication on these issues. And nowadays, when university is going towards a more digitalized experience, I can see the need for an app or something like that that brings that experience more closer to you on your phone. That could be a small improvement, but that could really benefit the experience of everyone of the users.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good answer. That's because I'd read your manifesto. I was going to say something similar. I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. But also I'd like to add to that in terms of like the academic societies, again, something we have done or tried to do, and it's been reasonably successful within the Anthropology Society, is to hold sort of own events for students to come along to, particularly for like first years. We had one earlier this year when it was coming up to them writing their first essay. And it's an essay that everyone who does anthropology does, because you all sort of do the same modules in first year. So we'd all done it ourselves before the current committee, and so it was just so that they could come along and ask us like, oh, what exactly am I supposed to be doing with this? How should I go about writing it? We got like, I think it was around like 40 students come along to attend that like information session, and we've tried to hold others throughout the term. We will be doing one sort of like revision sessions like towards the end of term, and I think that is a good way to go, like students helping other students, because as I mentioned earlier, I've been in my 5th year now, so I've got experience of all the things that younger students are going to be going through. So I think, yeah, the academic society is helping out is really like vital, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
I think that sort of the personalised touch from the academic societies and in some schools reps joining on that as well is something that sort of started to spread, especially through the last academic year. Seen it so much, and Modern Languages, who are a relatively new academic society, they started their year with a drop-in, let's just write essays together sort of thing, and that sort of seems to work really well in certain pockets, especially the humanities and social sciences. But I think in terms of what Andrea was saying about that sort of online support, the idea of an app has been floated around so many meetings at the university, and just nobody seems to have the drive to do it. And I think it's a real shame, because that app would be like the key core point of contact for all students to go to. And there's currently a new system in the works to bring together Moodle and SDS and all the other things that you have to log into at like 94 different times. And that would be a great opportunity, and I would love to be the voice to take that forward. Would be a great opportunity to say, why don't we have a chat option so that students can quickly pop a message to their lecturer and it will just flash up, answer it, click away. We all use Messenger all the time. We've all got WhatsApp. We've all got those constant messages going through our phones. It would be so easy to just sort of say, why did I get 85 I wanted a 95. I don't know. And that's I don't think I'd be questioning it. Yeah.
I wouldn't question
if
an
I
85.
ever got anything that high, I don't think I'd question it.
No.
But yeah, so if you had any like questions, you could just easily send them something. But that would be greatly helped by an app. But hopefully this system, this magic, glorious system, will be able to be the first answer towards getting better and quicker support.
Yeah,
I mean, sorry. you go.
Yeah, no, just to add on that, on the app, it really does help, I think, because we're using for one of our modules, Basecamp, which basically is an app that you can use through a university account. And that really helps communication, it really does. So the lecturer can see our work in progress in a way, and is basically a sort of messenger, but also function that you can upload and get separate groups. And yeah, I can say it works. So I would really see it being pushed forward by any one of us, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great idea, but the only sort of problem I could maybe see with it, where we was talking about inconsistencies earlier, it would rely on the lecturers being engaged with it. And there's going to be some lecturers that will be like, yes, wow, great idea. And then there are going to be others that are just not even going to bother like getting the app. So it's a good idea, but it'd be very difficult, I think, to sort of get it to take off. Well, as you said, it's been talked about in meetings before, so it's obviously is a difficult thing to sort of get to take off.
I think it's the funding that's the issue.
Right.
But yeah.
Cool. Well, another question we've had is, obviously now we're going into the second term where we've had the UCU strikes. What's your personal opinion on these ongoing strikes? Because this is not the first year that they've been going on for.
Yeah. So, well, I can say I did my second year, then went a year abroad, and then came back to another set of strikes. So, of course, I cannot say I'm the happiest person about the strike as any student, I imagine. In my first year, I was student rep for anthropology for my course, and the best line of action that as a student reps at SENA at that time was to support the strike as much as possible so that we could bring the discussion back on the table between UCU and UCA, so that lecture would start back, university life would go back as normal. Now, at this round of strike, what I see is a lot more disenfranchisement also from the lecturers. Actually, lecturers that in the past have been supportive of the strike are starting to not lose faith, but not being supportive of the strike anymore, whether it be for the disruption or because they don't see anymore the reason why they should strike, because they don't agree with the reason of the strike being called. So my personal opinion on this specific occasion of strike would be less supportive of the strike itself. I'm still supporting of the lecturers that decide to strike is the right, and I'm supportive of the students. I would say at the students that are affected, that one way to make the best out of the strike is to maybe linger around, and if you see someone, if you need to talk still to the lecturer that is striking, try still to approach him and ask, because most of the time they're still happy to talk with you. They're not fed up with you, and they're there to support you. So they're having a grant with the university, not with you as a student. So just go there and ask, and they'll be more than pleased to answer you.
Yeah, I think one of the things that a lot of people don't realise is, even though it is mostly actually lecturers striking, they're actually mainly doing that out of like solidarity with the postgrad and postdoc researchers, because they're the ones that are really sort of heavily underpaid for what they do. They do a huge amount of work. Obviously, some of them will be doing lectures, will be doing seminars alongside doing their own research. So yeah, it's actually often the lecturers themselves are just doing it because the postgrad and postdoc people aren't in a position where they are able to strike. If they strike, it's going to interrupt their career, interrupt their research so badly that the lecturers, particularly within anthropology, I know they are doing it to show their support for the postgrad and postdoc people. In terms of my own personal opinion on them, similar to Andrea, I was here at the ones 2 years ago as well, although actually then I was on my year abroad, so I wasn't really too badly affected by them. but I do have friends that missed up to a month of classes because of the strikes. And if they're people that are still here now, they've obviously missed some last term, they're going to miss some coming up. It's a huge amount of classes to miss. At the end of the day, we are paying for our education. There's a change petition going around at the moment, I don't know if any of you have seen it as well, about compensation for students, as financial compensation, which is something that I think should be done. Other universities are providing financial compensation, even if it's ranging from like just £100 or so to some universities are giving like £1,000. So it's something that I think our university should be looking at. They seem to just sort of be trying to ignore students when it comes to the issue.
Obviously, we as a union let the students vote on our stance this year for the first time. Last time there was a lot of backlash, and I gave the backlash to the union last time, if I'm honest, because I didn't think that they were doing enough. And this time around, we were in quite a privileged position where the students voted for us to support strikes. I personally support the strikes, but also I don't see why you can't support the strikes and want fair compensation. We have been pushing the university to start those conversations. We have started them, but it's just not going very far at the minute. Obviously, with the new round of strikes coming up, it is becoming a much more pressing issue, and I think that the university is still trying to chase their tails a little bit in correctly mitigating for last term. There are still some students who don't feel like the time that they lost have been adequately given back to them in any way, shape or form, and I think that we're desperately trying to do the mopping up that we can do. And I mean, I've got my first meeting about the strikes with the university tomorrow, and the top thing on our agenda is compensation. And I think that trying to get fair compensation and mitigate correctly and make sure that students are informed at all times, and making sure that that relationship between Kent Union, UCU and the students, and Kent Union and the students is a very fine balance. I'd like to think we've been doing a good enough job until now, and we'd like to continue to do that job. But I think that there is a lot of distrust from the students to the university, because it does seem to be something that they're just not listening.
I mean, one of the problems as well, it's not even, obviously financial compensation would be sort of ideal, because you are losing out on money essentially by not having your classes. But I think people mainly feel hugely ignored by the university, because in most cases there's not even been any sort of makeup of those classes they've missed. They've not been able to do those seminars, do those lectures at any other point. So I think that is a huge part of why students are really upset with the university about it as well, rather than just the financial aspect.
No, for sure. Okay, well, we have come to the end of our debate. Very intense, but thank you for all your answers to the questions. You guys have now 1 minute each to do a closing statement. So we'll go back the other way around.
So
we'll do it fairly.
All right. First of all, thank you for listening to everyone. And of course, voting starts 17th to the 21st. And well, yeah, vote for me, I guess.
Yeah, so thank you everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come back and give my spiel. And the university is going through such a massive period of change at the minute. There's so much going on, and I have been the safe pair of hands that has been steering Kent Union into that change at the minute, and I would love to continue being that safe pair of hands. I think I've got the skills to do it, so yeah.
Yeah, same. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to you guys as well, especially for letting us do this, for also sparing your time to allow us to do this. Yeah, kind of just like to finish by saying, kind of reiterating everything as we've talked about throughout. If you'd like to see like any of these sort of changes that any of us have talked about, just go out and vote. Make sure to vote is the main thing. Like, whether you're going to vote for me or not, like, make sure to go out and vote. Use your vote. It's what it's there for.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you guys who have tuned in. We'll be taking a short break, and then we will be back with our candidate for VP Postgraduate. Hello and welcome back to the second round of debates where I'm joined by the postgraduate experience candidate Patrick. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for joining us. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes and you can do an opening statement.
Okay, so my name's Patrick. I'm running through your VP postgraduate experience. A bit about myself. So I'm currently a master's student. I'm a part-time student studying political sociology. So I'm at a school of SSP, SSR. Alongside that, I work as a fencing coach and also as a waiter down in the Abode Hotel, Canterbury. So pretty busy man. My reason for running, so I guess I should include that. My manifesto is built around sort of 4 main ideas. Firstly, support for postgrads. So I want Kent Union to be a place that postgrads know they can turn to when they need support and guidance. And when I say postgrads, I don't just mean people like myself, like the master students. I mean like, postgrad researchers, people who actually have sort of full-time jobs and full-time research papers they're working on. Second point is engagement. So not just engagement with the current societies that are going on, but I feel like the postgrads, I feel like I could help postgrads form more of like a community within themselves. Not every postgrad has to get involved with a society which is dominated by undergrads, by freshers, by second and third years, but also we should have events and we should have things which are directed to them exactly. My third point is basically around teaching. So I believe that if you're a postgrad who's researching and you're given a seminar group, it's really important that Kent Union can give you the support you need, or at least pressure the schools to give you the support you need. Rather than you rock up in your second year of your PhD and you're told, oh, you're running the seminar on international politics. Good luck. You actually have some kind of formal training to give you the background for that. And the last point is about finance. So there probably will be a question on this, but I fully stand alongside the UCU. I believe that the Kent Union is a union, and what is unionization if not to stand up for the the students who are striking effectively. It's not just about the lecturers who are obviously full-time workers, but actually our fellow students who are the ones who are at the front of this debate about equal pay and working conditions. So that's me and my manifesto summed up in 1 minute 45.
Yeah,
I guess.
just about. Yeah, thank you. Perfectly timed. All right, so first question. As a postgraduate taught masters, what will you do to learn about the needs of postgraduate research students?
Yeah, so this has been a big part of the last few weeks for me. After I decided I wanted to run, I went and spoke to Laura Carlin, current VP postgrad experience, and yeah, the best bit of advice she gave to me was going to speak to postgrads. I'm lucky enough, I know a few, so I went and spoke to them, and I've been trying to reach out now to further sort of their colleagues and other people I can get into. But I feel like to engage with them really, or to help reach out to them, you need to be proactive, basically. You need to go and find them, go and talk to them, go and find out what their needs are. Don't wait for them to come to you.
Yeah, they probably don't have time.
Yeah, they don't have time for
I'm
that,
one,
yeah.
and I live my life in the lab, and I don't go out very much. So, good point. Okay, and second question is, what do you think the key issues are that postgraduates face?
I think one of the big issues that postgraduates face, and this is from speaking to postgraduates, is loneliness. So as a lot of international students, you come in, you're in a new environment, new university, you're trying to make new friends, and it can feel quite isolating, I think. So I think that's one of the issues you'd be looking to tackle, like I said, about running events, trying to get people involved, and trying to build a sense of more of a postgrad community among schools, within schools, but between postgrads and postgrad researchers and postgrad masters. I think another big issue is for postgrad researchers especially is pay and working conditions, which is obviously what the ECU are striking for. If you're given 20 hours teaching pay, but you've got to mark 80 essays in 2 weeks. It's not balanced. It's not balanced. It's not how it works.
No, definitely. Okay. Do you view the needs of postgraduate students as similar to those of undergraduate students?
I think every student experience is different. I think I'm not going to group all postgrads together and all undergrads together, because my university experience has been completely different to someone else's. I'm a postgrad at the moment, but I was at Kent for my undergrads. I'm doing my master's part-time, so I have a bit of time. I'm still involved in the societies that I was involved in. I still have my friends who are here. So my needs as a postgrad are completely different from an undergrad first year who's just come in, and a postgrad. My needs are probably more different from a postgrad who's just started here as a master's student or a PhD student, and a fresher who's just come into Kent as an undergrad. They probably have more in common in reality than I have with them. That doesn't mean I can't sort of represent them or work with them or look to help them, but it means that while there are differences between postgrads and undergrads, there are also similarities as well, which you can look to bridge, you know.
Yeah, so it's more at looking at what the needs are for each different group.
Yeah, exactly.
And what do you think the barriers are facing postgraduate students that would want to engage with the union?
Engage with the union, I think there's been a bit of a breakdown of trust between postgrad students, especially PGRs, and Kent Union. Probably, in my opinion, stemming back from my second year, so 2 years ago, when Kent Union decided to remain, shall we say, uninvolved in the strike, so they didn't pick a side. It's quite hard to come back from that. I know, speaking to Laura especially, she's had trouble trying to bridge that gap again. I think the second thing is not necessarily workload. So within my society with Inventing, we have a PGR who, you know, she's currently writing a thesis, she's trying to get first author papers published, but she still comes up to training. You know, she still makes that effort, and I think it's partly is getting people to understand that there are opportunities there for them if they want to do it, but also making more postgrad exclusive events. I can understand why, you know, if you were having, you know, the Poly Society, for example, encompasses undergrads and postgrads, politics students, but if they're holding drinks in Woodies, you know, how many postgrad researchers really feel comfortable going along to that kind of event and sitting there with, you know, getting drunk with the people who they've just done a seminar with that day?
Yeah.
You know, so while I understand you need to have that kind of solidarity between all of the students, there's also a time and place where perhaps postgrad needs their own space to do that kind of thing. You know, and I think that's something societies need to be far more aware of.
I have a personal question as a postgraduate student. I'm aware that there's like a Kent Graduate Student Association, and I know that at the beginning of the year they tried to work with Laura. Is that something that you see yourself doing in the future?
Working with KGSA?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to. You know, I don't think we're rivals.
No, not as in like a rival sort of thing, but as in like, do you have any plans to kind of like do more to work with them?
Yeah, I think so. I haven't got anything too specific, sorry guys.
No, so this is just like a question that popped
absolutely.
into my head.
So what's your experience with KGSA?
Not to be, well, they do, I know that they hold events for students, and they do a lot of things in Wolf. And at the beginning of the year, I'm aware that the union, like Laura would come in and like they would do things together, but I think that's kind of fizzled out a little bit as the year's gone on. So I'm not sure if you had any opinions on that yourself.
Yeah, I think if KGSA have the connections, they're already in there with students, they're talking to students, then, you know, that sounds like something that just needs to be absolutely tapped into. You know, we have so Kent Union trying to run like the networks, which I think is kind of a separate debate, varying degrees of success. And I went along to a postgrad network night last term sometime, and it was quite enjoyable. But if KGSA can be sort of more behind that, if they can use their connections to get more people involved with Kent Union and say, look, these people are on your side, you know, these people want to work with you, these people want to build bridges, then I think absolutely they need to be, they will be something that I'd like to work with next year, provided that Ron doesn't win.
Yeah, well, I'll stop going off the grid now. So you've mentioned providing workshops and training days for postgrads. What would this specifically entail?
Yeah, so I was speaking to a postgrad at UCL, University College London, and she was saying basically at the start of every year they have, throughout the year they have like postgrad training days based around teaching. It's called UCL Arena, I think I've got that right. Sorry if I ever haven't. And they basically provide training courses, certifications, so people who are teaching as postgrads can get the support and get the training that they need. I feel like either the union itself needs to put on events in September, so people who are PGRs who've been told, like, oh, you're running this seminar, you know, here's how to effectively manage your marking time, here's how to balance your marking with your work, here's how to be engaged with students. I think really that's mutually beneficial for undergrad students who then have more engaging seminars, who have people who they can relate to, and good teachers, and also then the postgrads. They feel more comfortable, they feel prepared to go into that environment. You know, a lot of them it's brand new. You know, you rock up, you're expecting to do your research, and then, oh, here's, you know, 3 seminar groups you need to run as well.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, exactly. You know, it needs to be far more structured. And either Kent Union can use its resources to put those events on themselves, or they should be pressuring schools into providing the adequate training and the adequate support for the postgrads.
Postgraduates are often proud to be part of the postgraduate community. In your manifesto, you say you want to connect postgraduates to the student body as a whole, and do you think this is the right approach?
Yeah, I do. I think connecting postgraduate students to the whole is more about getting students to understand what a postgrad is. You know, someone said in the engagement debate yesterday, engaging with postgrads is exactly the same as engaging with undergrads. Like, it's not. They're two very different things. That's not to say that postgrads aren't part of the student body, but I think this question was almost inverse. It's more about, obviously postgrads have been undergrads, they know what it's like. They've had career breaks, they've come back, they're 35. Yeah, obviously, they would feel patronised when they're told, oh, you're coming to freshers fair. Here's our first social of the term. If you're 35, you've got dependents, you've got a career around you, perhaps not too interested in that. But it doesn't mean you can't get involved with the student body as a whole. And I think, like I said, I think part of that is getting undergrads to realise that the guy who's running your seminar is a student, the same as you in a sense, and he probably recently was in a seminar the same as you, and you have a lot in common. So one of my ideas for that was actually, I don't know if it's a late question or either way, but yeah, one of my ideas for that was, so when you have like third-year undergrad students who are looking to do masters, looking to do PhD, set up networks in which they can speak to people who are already doing their area of interest. So when I was looking to do masters, I've moved from the School of Poli Art to the School of SSP, SSR. My undergrad was in politics and international relations, and I knew like PhD students in politics, or master students in politics, but I didn't really have any connections with the School of SSP, SSR, and I wasn't really sure, other than sort of maybe browsing Facebook or LinkedIn or sending out an email, where I could get involved in that, how I can make those connections. And I think it's something that's really lacking, in terms of that progression from undergrad to postgrad. And whether you're staying in Kent, whether you're moving, you should be able to speak to, or you should be able to at least access that community in some way. That, don't keep them completely separate, because it's transitional.
Yeah.
You move from one to the other. And it doesn't mean you should move from one to the other and then
And
not
no,
look
goodbye.
back. Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
done now. Yeah, no, agreed. I've had a question. Sorry, that's why I keep doing this.
No,
So one question from social media is, how would you ensure that postgraduates are supported by the KGSA?
how would I ensure that KGSA
Yeah.
are doing their job?
Yeah. Is that something that you plan on doing? And if you did, then what would you do to make sure?
Yeah, I wish I'd done a bit more reading on KGSA. Apparently that's been a big part of it.
Sorry, I think I spurred that one on.
That's
I
okay.
should have done that.
Yeah, I mean, if I was elected, if I am elected, if Ron doesn't win, then yeah, definitely I would be working with KGSA to make sure that they're supporting their students, and also making sure that postgrads realise that there's alternative channels. I think it's a big one. That the union is someone you can turn to. We're not going to turn your back on you and say, oh, you're not really a student. I think one of the great analogies I actually got from a postgrad student was, to students with staff and to staff with students.
Yeah.
So, it depends. Whatever's convenient at the time, basically, is how they're viewed. But yeah, I'd really like for them to have, multiple channels that they can access when they need support. Not just KGSA or their supervisor, basically.
And you state that you support the UCU strikes. What is your response to those students who are demanding compensation?
Yeah, so this, I think, is part of a larger debate on like the marketization of university life, which has led to a big culture shift on how higher education is viewed. While I understand, so I was second year when strikes first happened, while I understand the need, like you are paying for a service in effect, and that's how higher education has shifted. I do think that it's a good way to sort of shift the focus of the debate from the actual core issue. It does kind of cloud it a little bit. People are striking not because they want to take your education away from you. They're striking because they want fairer pay. They want better working conditions. They want to be paid for their teaching hours properly. They want to be paid for the time they spend marking your essays. And I think it kind of turns the debate away from students as a whole versus university management and pits students against students, which is damaging for both parties. That said, other universities have set a precedent. They have compensated students. And I do think that Kent should be, or the union should be pressuring universities or the university to do that for students at Kent. But I don't think that the focus of the UCU debate should be on compensation. I think the focus of the UCU debate should be about supporting our fellow students, postgrad students, basically.
Okay. Another question from social media. How do you plan on championing postgraduates' voices at the university?
That's a really good question. So one of the things I had, I'm trying to reflect this like a personal experience. You can always have like a postgrad spotlight. So part of my idea was if you had, you have like your union platforms, you have, your weekly shout outs on social media, you could have like your postgrad who you share their experience, you share what they're studying. It's really fascinating when you speak to postgrads. And you're like, okay, what are you doing? They take the title of their dissertation or their thesis. And you sit and you're like, oh, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna pretend I know what that means. But I do think that's something that should be inspiring, really, for students. And yeah, I think this week we're going to look at so and so who's studying in such and such a school, and this is their area of research. That'd be one way. The second way, I've just lost my train of thought. Sorry.
No, go.
No, it's gone.
Oh,
sorry, but I had
it's
a
all right.
second. We'll come back in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's okay. All right. Another question is, what's your stance on the recent GTA contracts cuts? Scholarships. Sorry, GTA scholarship cuts. There's a man talking in my ear. Yeah.
Sorry. So I haven't actually done. I don't know. Frankly, I don't have a stance. I haven't read that bit of news. So.
Okay, that's all right.
Sorry, I will do my research better next time, I promise.
That's all right. And this is the final question. You say that you want to focus on building skills for leading seminars. Do you think this is the responsibility of Kent Union or something we should lobby the university to do better?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I guess. I think it's absolutely something that Kent Union should provide, or could provide. We have the facilities, we have the resources. I guess it's a numbers game. How much can we afford to expend on it? How much of a postgrad is going to engage with us compared to their school? How successful is lobbying the school is really going to be? It's proven difficult in the past when you try and, it's like academic free Wednesdays. All the schools say, yeah, we'll do academic free Wednesdays. Absolutely no problem. Do they do it? No.
Some of them do, some of them don't.
Some
it's
of
a
them
mixed
do.
bag,
Okay,
yeah.
It's a mixed bag. Either way. So I guess that question comes down to how effectively can you lobby? How successfully can you lobby the schools? But for me, I feel like, as a student union, we have the resources, we have the staff. We should absolutely be doing it. Even if that just boils down to, a 2-day sort of training day in September where anyone who's interested comes along, anyone who wants to learn, and then you build off that. I'm not saying this September I'm going to go in and I'm going to get every postgrad who's leading a seminar to come along and do teacher training with me, or with whoever I can get involved to do it. My dad's a teacher, I'll get him along, he can show you a few things. I'm not saying that's going to happen this year, but I'm saying you lay the foundations, you set the precedent, you start pressuring the schools, and then in years to come, maybe when I'm doing a PhD, who knows, probably not here, or maybe, then the provisions are in place.
It's great.
Small steps.
Yeah, baby steps. Well, thank you. I'm going to let you do your closing statement now, so you've got 1 minute, and then you will be free to go.
Cool, thank you. So thank you very much for listening. Vote for Postgrad Pat. You might see him in the plaza next week. I'm going to get a big letterbox and some post-it notes, and you can put letters through my face, and I will then read them all to get your ideas of what we need to do to engage with postgrads. I hope I've kind of shown today that I'm not just here as some master student who hasn't got a clue how higher education works or how postgrad researchers are different. And I really hope that you vote for me for your VP postgrad experience next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. Welcome. So thank you guys for joining us on this live debate. We'll be having another debate tomorrow. Make sure that you are voting from the 17th of February to the 21st because your voice is important. And thank you guys again. So good night.